Good evening, friends. I'm Ryan Puenz-List. I'm your Township Supervisor. We're going to get started. I know there's an accident on 69-2, so people may join the site, which is absolutely okay. Tonight, I just want to do some introductions before we get started, and then we'll dive into what we have to talk about. Karen, do you want to say hello?
I would like to, yes. Good afternoon, good evening. I am Karen Hildebrand. I'm your Township Superintendent, or otherwise known as the Township Manager. I'm responsible for the day-to-day operations of the Township and under the direction of and supervision of the board as a whole. So, nice to meet you all. I know some of you, but...
Thanks, Karen. Trustee Kellerman? Want to introduce yourself?
I'm Sharon Kellerman, Peacock Road.
Thanks. Trustee Gondrak?
I'm sorry, I'm still a trustee.
I am a trustee, yes, that's me.
Well, it doesn't say that, it just says Cheryl Keller.
Oh, I get a sign. I'm listed here.
Sign.
Don't confuse us, Cheryl.
I'm sorry.
And I'm Adam Andre, also a township trustee recently appointed. So I can see some familiar faces as well.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, familiar faces and some new ones. So thank you for being here.
And we have another new guy with us.
My name is Tim Mayer. I just started as the assessor here in Bath a couple weeks ago, so really excited to be here and hope I can help wherever possible.
Welcome to the Township. Our long-term assessor retired. I'm happy to see her off to do hopefully more relaxing things, and we've got a new guy ready to take up the mantle. We thought it might be helpful for him to be here to talk a little bit about assessing. So in a minute, I'm going to ask the folks in the audience what you want to make sure we cover tonight, so we make sure we cover that. What is on my list to cover is to talk about revenue, why we're asking for an increase to the millage, give a description of the millage, talk about assessing a little bit, and then if we have time or interest, I'm hoping Karen can talk a little bit about the budget, what we're doing now, how we're budgeting, what we may need to move should the millage not pass, and those types of things. So from our members of the audience, are there things other than those items that you want to make sure we cover tonight?
I would like to know why you're having this millage proposal on August 4th rather than in November.
Okay. We'll talk about that.
Cynical, obviously.
Okay. Anything else you all want covered?
I don't understand with the Headley Amendment. I thought that was a state-approved thing, and I thought that was already in. I didn't think you could go in and ask the voters to change it. I guess I'm confused, like usual, but and I'm a little bit irritated with all the $400,000 homes that we have in Bath Township. How we could be low and need something more. I mean, our taxes have gone up every year since we owned our property and then built our house. And, you know, a lot of people move here for one thing. Who can tell me what it is? The low taxes. And we're going this way. And so I just think, I'm a little irritated. And I promised him I wouldn't speak, so already I've broken the promise.
I'm glad you did. The whole point is to have you speak.
What's that?
The whole point of having you here is to speak, so I'm glad you did. Anything else you all want us to cover tonight?
Have we given up on the trail? Because of the eagles or something, I heard?
No, I think we could talk about that separately because it's sort of a long story, but we are still in the mix of talking about what to do with the property by Parkway. There's a proposal in front of us right now.
And somebody told me that you guys eventually would like to buy that property back there. Is that true?
We own the property.
Okay, but it's been declared that you can't build on it, correct?
No. No one has declared that. It is wet, so I think it is doubtful that many of the pieces could be built on, but there certainly are buildable pieces back there that we own.
Okay, so you are looking into that, yes or no?
To building something back there?
Putting something back there, like homes that could share the tax base, I
No,
guess.
we are not looking at building homes back there. Right now, the proposal in front of us that we can talk about later is if we offline some of the property to the local land trust, who would take it over and manage the trail and manage the land and keep it in trust. That's the proposal in
Have
front
we
of us.
always had this land trust? This is the first I've heard of it.
It's not our land trust. It's a separate entity, a nonprofit that operates to manage land across the region.
Wow. Is this new?
The proposal,
No, the land trust.
I actually don't know how old the land trust is.
It's widespread, I think it's multiple places, and I think they've been around a while.
Well,
I couldn't tell you, I'm sorry.
If I could ask another question similar to what my wife had. I've watched, since I've been a property taxpayer out here for 15 years, I've watched Meyer be built, I've watched Monticello's be built, I've watched the marijuana thing come in, I've watched many $350,000 homes come in, added to the tax base, and I'm wondering, all this money that has come in, and I know the cost of living has went up, as we all know, when we're buying gas and buying groceries and everything, and I know that you can't hire someone for $10 an hour to mow lawns anymore. Those days are gone. But I've watched another whole new subdivision is going in by the soccer fields.
That's right.
So you have all that tax base coming in, and I've seen, when I first moved here, I saw a quad put out there, a working quad out here for sale. That's a $25,000 piece of equipment, and it's like, well, geez, why are we selling a $25,000 piece of equipment? And I realized we need good equipment to do good quality work.
Yeah.
But as far as seeing, and we need new police vehicles now and then. But when I watch the people go by to mow the lawns and keep things up, the equipment they're driving is pretty much state of the art. And so I'm just wondering why that's.
So,
I think those are great questions. We
Yeah.
can cover them in the budget.
so one thing I can offer you right now to answer one of your first questions is if you have this document, the green and white, if you look at the first line under estimated revenues, and this is, if you look at this under 2025 amended, you'll see a $2,062,900. This year, we are slated to have $2,155,000. That's a $100,000 difference. So when you talk about these new homes being built and you talk about the additional taxes that we're bringing in, this township only got $100,000 more over last year because of those
And
tax
that's a
increases.
result of
You
the
get
low
those
taxation.
Paid every year, or twice a year.
Well, I understand that, but all we get because of the money goes, and that's one of the other items that we'll talk about, of all the places your money goes, the township's only keeping less than 20% of your taxes in police and fire millage and then the operating millage. Our share of that, new, over last year was $100,000.
So we'll dig into that deeper when we talk about budget. Those are really, really good questions, and I've heard other
Yes.
people
And
ask them as
I'm
well.
pressed for time anyway, so
Okay.
I won't.
Could we have Tim maybe explain, you or Tim talk about Headley and how that process works, how we're able to override?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we
I
talk
was
about
just thinking
the
because-
problem first?
We can, I just know that he said he's pressed for time and that
When
was
we got
the
the-
questions.
About 6:40, 6:45.
Okay,
Oh, we got it. Okay, sorry. That's okay.
go ahead.
And we're recording, so you all know we're recording so that folks can watch this later. So if I talk to sort of the masses, that's what I'm doing. I wanted to just start out with why we are in this predicament we're in. So what you see on the screen is a piece of a memo that I wrote to the board back in January. This maps out our budget cycle for the last 5 years. You can see the approved final budget end position, what we expected in the budget each year. And you can see they're all red numbers, which means it's all negative. We expected to lose money each of those years, to draw money out of our fund balance, our savings, to cover the gap. The next line is the actual audited end position, where we actually ended. And you can see 2 of those 5 years we ended in the black, even though we planned to end in the red, so those were really good years. The other 3 years we did end in the red, but not as much as we planned to end in the red. So all of the budgeted all of the end actual items show we have done better than we budgeted for. So that's the good news. The bad news is 3 of those 5 years we still had to draw money out of our fund balance. That red number all the way over on the right side, $669,833, is the 5-year fund balance change. So over the course of 5 years, we have drawn down from our fund balance, from our savings, almost $670,000. You can see that that's not sustainable over time. We don't have enough money to keep doing that. Go ahead.
Sorry, so when you say your 5-year or your fund balance, is that a reserve?
That's our savings. That's our rainy day fund. That's the money we have left at the end of the year.
Do you have a reserve budget?
We do not budget for the reserves, no, unless we're budgeting in the current year to spend it.
I mean, maybe you don't have to budget for reserves, but I was president of a condo association, we always budgeted reserves, so we knew the roof had to be replaced in 20 years, and this, and the pool, and blah, blah, blah.
You're talking about a capital improvements plan, which we do have, yes. We have an entire plan on what we plan, where the roof is going bad, where our vehicles are going bad. That's something we can share with you.
Just a different name, okay.
Yes. Yes, the fund balance is the money left over that we have in savings. And you can see that third column is total general fund balance at the end of the year. So that is the reserve dollars. So at the end of 2024, the audit says we have just over $3 million in the fund balance. So you can see if you put the numbers together there, we would run out of money in our fund balance very quickly if we continue to pull at the level that we've been pulling. That's the revenue problem. So we either need more revenue or we need fewer expenses. Unfortunately, what we're seeing, just like you all are seeing in your households, what I'm seeing in my households, expenses are going up in ways that are very hard to control. Healthcare costs, the cost of materials, the cost of employees, all of those things are going up. And so that's why the board has been discussing revenue. We've been discussing this for the last 6 months. What we opted to do, and I'm speaking sort of on behalf of the board, and my colleagues are here, can argue or disagree or agree with me if I'm saying the wrong thing on behalf of them. We discussed different options, assessments, budget cuts, millages, things we are able to send to the voters, things we are able to do ourselves. Where we landed was to try to do the Headley rollback. So the Headley rollback, the way this has worked is that the state constitution does say that you're only allowed to raise property taxes a certain amount every year. If things go up higher than that inflation amount, you're sort of capped. And so the millage actually rolls back. So our operating millage as a charter township started in 1978 at 5 mills. And almost every year since then, it has rolled back a little bit. So we have never reset it, whereas in other communities they have reset their millage over time in small increments. Instead, over the last 48 years, we have lost about 1.5 mills in the operating millage. So we're now at about 3.5. Again, other communities would have said every 2 years we're going to ask you to do a rollback of 0.1. So made it really easy and much less painful. Unfortunately, our past boards did not have that foresight and decided to continue to let that roll back. And so now we're in a place where we have a revenue issue. Does that make sense to folks now? So the Headley Amendment is part of the Constitution, but part of the amendment says that the voters can override that cap if they want to. And so that's what we're asking the voters to do, is to reset or override that cap that has brought us down almost 1.5 mils. Did I say anything wrong in that as an expert?
No, I think you got it pretty well.
Okay, great. Feel free to interrupt me if you ever hear me say something wrong. I'd rather it be correct than have an ego.
Yeah, I think you got it.
The question I would have is, how did you arrive at a 41% increase in the bills versus 20% increase? Something like that.
Yeah,
41% jump. So what drove you to that? The other question I have is, in 2020, your 5-year fund, or your fund balance was 3.7 million.
That's right.
3.7 million. In 2023, it rose 200,000.
Yep.
And then it dropped significantly. So it's going back and forth. Why the need for change now? I mean, next year, we don't have 2025 figures?
Not yet, no. Our audit is going to be given to us next month.
Correct, August.
We have unaudited numbers that we could share, but the audit will be released next month.
What would you feel free to release the unaudited number.
We're not going to release the unaudited number because we can't stand behind that. We want to make sure it's audited so that we can say that it's been reviewed by experts.
So it's coming out when?
Next month? Yes.
Well, August. So this election, or this millage thing could have been decided in November when you had the numbers for 2025, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Yes, you're right. The board chose to put this on the August ballot. My take from that conversation, and I would definitely invite Adam, and well, Adam, you weren't there, but Sherry, I would invite you to chime in, was that there was an urgency. We wanted to put it on the first ballot we could get it on, which is August. And then if it fails, we have an option of putting it on November again, or changing it to a different amount, or doing something different, still within this year to be a taxable change for 2026.
You can't say 2025 red or, red or black. You can't say that.
I don't know the numbers, so I can't say that, but I think, Karen, you know the numbers. Did we draw from the fund balance? That is my expectation, is that we drew from the fund balance, but
Too huge. Let me pull that.
okay, Karen will pull that.
And I'm sorry, so a 41% increase in the millage for Bath, what would that mean to the bottom line as far as your revenue? How much would that increase your revenue?
We have that number and can get it for you too. It's part of the ballot proposal. Could you pull that? You can pull multiple things up at once. Here.
Did you just say?
I may have it here.
Okay.
We'll get that for you.
Okay.
Excuse me, I'll say, 1 mil tends to bring in around $600,000.
So we're talking about an increase in operating of $1 million if it goes through.
Yes, we'll get you the real number, but just so you can have it in your head now, that's about what it has equated to.
Okay.
If it doesn't pass, do you have any ideas what you're going to cut? Because I think people would really be interested in that part.
Yes, and we'll talk about that in just a moment when we talk about the budget. What I want to be careful to do is I don't want folks to feel like we're threatening cuts or we're fear-mongering to say, we'll close the senior center if we don't. That's certainly one thing we could do. We have not determined what those cuts could be, but we have statutory requirements, things that the law says we must provide, and then we have optional things like recreation in the senior center. So Karen will go over that in just a moment. You asked a question before the second question, though, and I wanted to make sure I answered that. Will you remind me what it was?
I can't recall now. I just want to make sure that if this went through, your Bath Township would have $1 million more revenue.
That's right. We'll get you the real number, but that's a good estimate.
And currently your revenue is how much for operating?
It is 2.155.
No, all revenue.
All revenue.
It's about 4-ish million, but Karen will grab it for you here.
4,319,740. It's on the second page of the budget.
And that's the general fund. There's also a sewer fund and a public safety fund that have revenue associated to them, and those are also in the numbers in the packet.
Okay, so am I wrong in saying that $1 million would represent a little under 25% increase in your...
Of the general fund, yes.
Wow.
It'd be more like a 10% increase in the entire budget, because it's about $10 million when you add up all three funds.
Okay, 10%.
So what are we talking about in like a $300,000 home? How much of the taxes go? I think that's what it is.
Well, no, they got it here.
Oh, we do?
Yeah, it's on the sheet that, yeah, it's been prepared.
For $200,000, $439.56.
Yeah, current $300,000 home with a taxable value of $150,000. Our current operating millage is at 3.548, so it's about $532. Under the proposed change up to 5 mils, $300,000 home value, $150,000 taxable value, it's about $750 annual for the township operating millage.
So our
So
bills,
an increase of $220. Yeah, go ahead.
I want to clarify one thing on the sheet right here. This sheet is using the taxable value, which is not necessarily like the market value of your home.
Right.
The taxable value is usually significantly less than the market value. So he was correct in saying if the market value is $300,000, the taxable value would likely be $150,000, if not less. But this sheet is using $300,000 as a taxable value, and then just above that, it's $100,000 as a taxable value.
Does that make sense?
And I think, Tim, Mayor, I think you were able to look up what the increase would be. I think you did for me at one point.
Yeah. If anybody has specific questions relating to their exact property, I could easily calculate what the increase would be for you. Just feel free to give me a call in my office or shoot me an email at any time, and I can get that for you.
I remembered your question. So your question was, did we consider other millage increases? And the answer is yes. We considered 0.5, 0.8, 1, and 1.42 to get us back to the full 5. And the board decided it was best to try to go back to the 5 operating mills because we know it's going to continue to roll back each year. And it would cover the amount that we were expected to take out of fund balance for the next year, as well as expected growth we were expecting in expenses for the next year. Ultimately, we thought that amount of money would cover the gap. Did I see a hand over here?
Yeah, I was just wondering, that $750 annually, would that be then to $750 every year, or is that going to go up even more beyond that?
Well, as the value of your home goes up and the assessment on your home goes up, the likelihood is that would rise as well.
So if people vote no to override the headway, would that stop that then?
That's right, yes. It would not stop the assessment on your home from going up.
No.
It would stop the increase in the tax rate. And I want to be clear, folks have used this 41% number, which is very accurate, but it's 41% of the operating millage, not 41% of your entire tax bill. When I ran this on my own home, it would equal about 4% increase on my personal tax bill, because there are other taxing authorities. I think those in the room have a chart showing you where the rest of the taxes are going. Those items would not be changed by this millage. We're only talking about the operating millage.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to imply that.
No, you didn't, but a lot of folks have been asking that question. I just wanted to make sure that's clear.
Absolutely. I've read, use your microphone.
Thank you. Online, I've read over and over, my tax value is going up 50%. So if you pay $1,000, it's going to go to $1,500. That's crazy. That is not what is happening. It's only raising our small percentage that goes to Bath Township operating expenses. So this is put out there so often that my taxes are going to go up 50%. That's not true.
One millage, one tax.
One part of, but
That's right.
simplistically, one part of your whole tax bill is going to go up, not 50% of your amount that you pay.
And for many of us, there is a second ballot question that is from the county, and they're asking to do the same thing, do a heavy rollback on the county, the general law townships, and the RESD. So what you're seeing on the ballot for most of us in Bath Township is also a heavily rollback from the county level. They have done it, I would argue, more strategically over time in smaller amounts, so it feels less aggressive, as ours certainly feels. Going back in time, I would have recommended boards in the past to have done that. Unfortunately, they did not.
So just to answer the question, so what is on the ballot for the proposal raise of $893,000 with the 1.4652 bills.
So just south of $900,000 with the new tax rate.
Okay, now you brought up the Clinton County millage roll-up. So that would also impact our taxes. That would be an addition, correct?
The county piece and the RESD piece would, but because there's a township piece to it, that's for general law townships, not for us. So that piece would not affect you, but the other two would, yes.
So for general, because we're a charter townships are always or most often at 5 mills is what they're authorized by the voters upon their creation, and general is 1 mill. So that's just because we're a charter township, that's the original charter authorizes that many mills.
So it's a
So
little
we have a number,
confusing.
we have 3 charter townships in the county?
Yes.
Right, so
It's Watertown and us, right?
Okay, and excuse me, I'm dense.
you're not, it's confusing.
No, it's very
yeah, you're not that.
So if both the Bath Township Millage roll up is approved, and then we're voting on a Clinton County,
Yeah,
That's right.
and we approve that,
what does that mean?
then our tax bill would increase more than what is Tim can quote.
Yes. Well, Tim could run those numbers too, but we don't speak on behalf of the county, so
So it
we
would
have.
go up.
It's gonna go up.
It would go up. Their request is a small increase. It
Okay.
would, yes, there would be another increase on their side.
I think it's important also to say that with the way that Headley works, is that if you look at your tax bills, unless your house was sold or improved, please correct me if I'm not, like, it becomes uncapped is what they call it, so that, right, when we bought our house here in 2008, it becomes uncapped and our taxes are redone at that selling price. Every year, so we've lived here since 2008, every year, our tax operating millage number, the number of mills, not the total amount, but the number of mills has either remained the same or decreased, right? So I think that's important for all of us to understand that as that revenue is added, so Tim's house becomes uncapped, his taxes are reassessed. All of our other taxes decrease because of that, because it's a total number of amount of revenue for the township that is viewed at.
And this is a state law, not something that we can change here. This uncapping, I know folks are talking about that a lot. That is not something we can control, change. It is state law. Call your local elected official or your state elected official. Can you just give us a quick overview of assessing how it works, why we're seeing assessments go up in the community, and then we can get to the budget question before you all have to take off?
Yeah, so part of the reason assessments have gone up steadily, I'm sure as you all know, market values have steadily increased over the past several years. And what we do in the assessing department, we do a sales study every year. So we look at all the sales in the township, we base that, compare it to the assessed values, and then we calculate economic condition factors, which are basically, we're taking the cost to construct your home, and then we apply the economic condition factor to determine what the market value would be in this local area. And when that, like he was just saying, when a property sells, it uncaps, and when that increase is greater than the rate of inflation, that's when we get a heavy rollback. But that equation does not include new construction, so it's only really meant to rein in the increase in revenue so that it's equal to the rate of inflation. And then, for you guys, if you're living in your house and you're not adding anything to it, you're not doing any additions, you're not doing any major home improvement projects or anything like that, and that's not even counting remodeling, because remodeling wouldn't affect your assessed or taxable value in the first place. But as long as you're not doing any additions on your house or anything like that, your taxable value will only increase with the rate of inflation every year.
So I get my letter from you. I have a new assessed value, a new equalized value. I'm mad about it. I don't agree with that. What are my options?
So in that case, if you wanted to appeal your assessed value, the time to do that would be the March board review. And unfortunately, it's already passed for 2026 since we're in July. But you would want to appeal to the March board review next year, and the board review will make a decision. They're technically independent from me, so your case would be before the board review. The board review would look at all the evidence. They'd make their own decision about what your taxable value should be, or assessed value as well. It could be both. But after they make their decision, if you still disagree with it, then you also have appeal rights to the Michigan Tax Tribunal. You would just have to appeal to the MTT within 35 days of the board review decision.
And the board of review are citizens, our neighbors, who the board appoints to represent us in that way. What if I get my letter about my assessed value and I'm like, I don't have the money for it, I'm worried about getting taxed out of my home. Is there an option other than the appeal?
Yeah, there is. There's everywhere in the state of Michigan, the poverty exemption is available. And what that is, you apply for it here. The property exemption you'll have to apply for it either at the July board review or December board review. The July board meeting was this past week, but you can also apply for it in December of this year. And if you apply for that, they do an income test, and they kind of review your assets and your tax returns if applicable, or if you're on Social Security, you don't have to worry about that. But if you fall within the income requirements, the property exemption will be granted by the board review, and then that turns your taxable value to zero, and you just have no property tax bill for that year. But you do have to apply for it again every year.
So there's some options for folks who might be in need, and some options for folks who might disagree with your expert assessment.
Exactly. We don't really intend to see anybody lose their home or anything like that. We try to have avenues for people to be protected. So. Yeah.
I bought my home in town in 2007. We got our uncapped assessment. We did not agree with it. We went to board of review. They didn't agree with us, but they did give us a discount in the middle. So I can vouch that process does work for you. And then just this week, we issued at least one poverty exemption for folks who needed it. So those processes do work. You just have to watch for the timeline because that's set by state law, right?
Yeah, it's all mandated by state law. So unfortunately, we can't really stray from that. But if you have any questions about poverty exemptions or the appeal process, I'm happy to help anytime if you want to give me a call or an income.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem.
I want to turn it over to you, Karen, if you will, to just talk about the budget in sort of a macro view, and then I'd invite the folks in the room to raise your hand, interrupt, or ask the questions about the expensive lawnmower and all those things, because she is paid to be able to answer those.
So I do want to go back to the question that was asked about the fund balance at the end of 2025. We did add $264,000 to the fund balance, so we added money to the savings, bringing that number to, I just had it on my phone written down here and I lost it. I think it was $3,391,000.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So better than budget.
Better than budget. And we always strive for that. It is not a mandate to spend. We cut costs where we can cut costs. So in talking about the budget, we have several line items on that front 2 pages. It's the first page, and then the back of the second page are all the revenues that the township can collect in terms of fees. It could be police report fees or any fees that we have. You can see that we have grants we get from the state. We also get statutory and constitutional revenue sharing. That is another large part of our funding. And that comes to the tune of about $1.4 million in constitutional tax from the state. We depend on that money, and every year we feel as though, not to jog the state, but we feel as though like they're chipping away at that money, and we can't always count on that money. So that money is critical to us because we do, in addition to tax dollars, depend on those money for your services.
And what you're describing right now is the general fund, right?
Correct, the general fund. And that is generally where, not to use generally a lot, but that is generally where most of the departments of the township are. The clerk's office, the supervisor's office, the superintendent's office, the treasurer's office, all have what we call departments in which we apply the expenditures for salaries, for benefits, for taxes that we pay, payroll, and then any office supplies and general use items that we can anticipate in those departments. So you'll see on each page, the first one being the township board, it's the supervisor. So Ryan is a department of one. He receives a salary to be the township supervisor. That salary, those benefits are included there. You can see that total comes to about $26,800 a year. And that includes his mileage reimbursements, dues and memberships, or if he attends any trainings. So each department will follow somewhat like that with salaries, benefits, and dues, memberships, training, anything used by that department. So we try to put those expenses where those expenses are spent. And that's why you see so many different departments within the general fund budget. Please.
So insurance and bonds, is this directors and officers insurance?
So you're on page 5.
That's it, too far?
Or, nope, you're on page 4. So the insurance and bonds is actually the townships as an entirety, our liability insurance.
Okay.
And then our unemployment is paid out of that, as well as, give me 1 second. So the MML has workers' compensation insurance. So that is a total sum of all the insurance policies and liability insurance for the township.
Who is your carrier?
It is called PAR Plan, is our liability for the government services we provide.
PAR, PAR.
PAR Plan. And that is put out to bid almost every year.
Okay, that's what it is.
Yep.
So one of the things you can track in the revenue page on page 1, as Karen was saying, is you can see the increase in property taxes. Again, it was less than $100,000, even with all of these new builds that you all are seeing and we're seeing, the new properties.
Correct.
The amount that has gone up each year is still, not that $100,000 is small, but we have one expense that has gone up $100,000 coming up. So it wouldn't even cover that one new expense.
Thank you.
And we have seen the constitutional revenue sharing go down, and we have shared our disdain with our elected officials of the state for that, especially through the Michigan Townships Association. It's been a problem with all the local governments.
So one thing I would like to point out on page, I think it's page 4, there was a question out online on Facebook about the benefits in the township board line item increasing. You'll see that it went from $5,000 to $249,000. The township restructured its defined benefit, it's a MERS retirement pension system to a defined contribution. The township, because of that change, still owes a liability in the pension system. That is the payment for that, and that is for all the employees, all the full-time employees that were in that defined benefit pension that have now moved to the defined contribution.
That's a one-time nugget?
It's going to be over several years, but that is this year's payment.
Through at least 2030. Right. And that's the liability we have took on for having a pension program. Last year we made 2 major cuts. When people are suggesting we make cuts, I want to make it very clear we did 2 major cuts. We eliminated the pension program for non-union staff members, replaced it with a 401k-like program. That will save us money. It will also save our staff money, so that was a win-win, but it was a cut. Yes. And second, we restructured the health care benefit for our employees. Employees were not paying any amount toward their health care, which is wonderful, but also unheard of in modern workplace. And so we restructured the health care plan as well, so that we are paying 85%. Correct. And employees are now paying 15%. So we did make 2 major cuts on the backs of our staff, and I just want to call them out for being troopers, for being part of that, and appreciate them. But that's one place we've seen some savings, and we will see long-term savings as this liability for the pension program gets paid down.
Correct. So we were at, I believe, 72% liability vested, basically, that we've been paying, and we were 72% funded. With this year's report over last year, we are now at 78% funded. So as we make those payments, that liability continues to decline, and the funded ratio continues to go up. What we could not do in making that change, though, is make changes to people that were already retired. So we do have people in that system that will still accrue their benefit during their lifetime. Then we could not make changes to that. So these are the active employees and any new hires that join us in the future.
So this would appear to be, I was wondering, what's the sense of urgency? This is probably the biggest nugget, correct?
I would say it's one of the biggest nuggets. We continue to have to, we buy police vehicles every year. They put a lot, thousands of hours on police vehicles. That's a need. Another need would be we're being forced to migrate to a cloud system in the governmental accounting software and the softwares that we use for the township at the cost of $150,000. These are not things that we have options to do or not do. So that's a bill that we see in the foreseeable future. Another large bill will be we're required to buy new election equipment at the tune of probably $120,000 in the next year or so. That's also a mandate that comes to us from the state of Michigan. In the past, there has been grants that they have been available. I don't know that those grants will be available this time. So that tune, that $120,000 could be totally on the backs of our taxpayers.
That's right. The fire department has also expanded their staffing and their offerings because it was, in my opinion, massively understaffed. We did not have the right equipment. We still are short equipment. We have a carbon monoxide mitigation system we need to purchase in order to keep our firefighters healthy. And that will be probably at least 6 figures.
Correct.
Where possible, we have been applying for grants. I've seen that comments online about that too. We have hundreds of thousands of dollars of grants that we've won, and other grants that we have not won that we've competed for. So we've done a little bit of cuts, we've done a little bit of grant making, so we're trying to piece together as much as possible in a non-painful way.
With all of the improvements that you're stating for the fire department, whatever, how much of that is being covered by what we passed last year on the increase when you were anticipating the manufacturing plant that didn't come?
Yes, so that was the new public safety millage that you all passed. Thank you for folks for voting for that. That is partially funding some of that, but we are still backfilling the police and fire budget by the amount of, what is it, 600,000, I think?
1.4 million.
Oh.
If you'd like to turn to page 21. So this is one of the major funds that we're referring to. Yes, take care, both of you. One of the major funds that we are referring to is the public safety fund, and that is both the police and fire. You'll see that on page 21 of the green and white stripe document. At the bottom, you'll see estimated revenues, and you'll see that police and fire taxes. And you'll see the course of 2025, and then what we're estimating in 2026 is $2.425 million. And then if you move down a little bit to the bottom and it says operating transfer in, that is the amount that the general fund is supporting police and fire departments at, and that is $1.45 million. So we're using the township's general operating fund to substantially supplement the police and fire budgets by $1.4 million.
For folks at home, this green and white document Karen's referring to can be viewed online on our budget and finance page. You can download the current budget. It looks exactly like what we have in our hands here, so you can follow along.
Correct.
Can I ask another important question? Why is this a separate? Why isn't this part of your operating fund?
The police and fire fund?
Yeah.
Because it's a separate, because the millage is collected separately, it needs to be a separate fund.
State, is that a state thing?
Correct.
So it can be accounted for separately because those funds cannot be used in any other way.
I see.
That millage that we collect for police and fire is only for police and fire, and that is the $2.425 million that you're seeing on page 21.
Yeah, I saw a graph. I think this soaks up about, what's it, 3.8 mils or something? And this, so help me, it's probably, I can tell you it's comparing apples and oranges, but DeWitt Township, it was something like a 2.5 mils, and they have a lot more police and fire.
Correct, but they have a lot more, go ahead.
You're going to tell me a lot more of the mill is affecting a lot, or growing it more.
They have a higher taxable value.
Higher taxable
Okay.
value.
All right.
So their
And-
smaller amount
go
of
ahead.
mills multiplied by a higher
Okay.
taxable value.
I was actually curious about this myself, so I talked to Miles about it the
Great.
other day. And he pointed out DeWitt's fire department, they're also affiliated with their surrounding townships, so they benefit some from the scale.
Yeah, their new fire station is beautiful. Yeah, it's very nice.
Yeah, DeWitt, we're very similar to DeWitt, and I would offer you that they have a larger commercial and industrial base than that township does, which also helps.
Like, would the state allow you to share resources in that regard?
We currently share ambulance services with them, so yes, it is possible, but you have to find those areas where your municipalities are willing to cooperate with those intergovernmental services. I can offer that. I'm not sure any or all of them would be willing to share fire services. They do provide mutual aid. We are good neighbors to one another. But as far as having like a shared fire department, I'm not sure that we could pull that off, just because of the sheer
There's
size.
other communities in the county have done that in Clinton
Correct.
area.
Yes.
What's it called?
Ambulance.
Ambulance. And,
Mhm.
yes. So they built an authority together. Those are options. In the past, we've looked at building a recreation authority with DeWitt. So
Yeah.
there's all sorts of options.
We
Like
currently
that
have a
that
sewer
explore over
authority
time.
that we are in with DeWitt Township, the city of DeWitt, Watertown Township. There's 4 municipalities. So where there are opportunities for us to perform those authorities, we have. But much like the ambulance service, we're 6 square miles, they're 6 square miles. The ambulance parks somewhere in between in hopes that they're able to accommodate, every call for service. So it is challenging just because of the sheer scope of area, but we do look for those opportunities.
And that is another example of another new expense we've had over the last year. We have not paid for ambulance service in this township
Correct.
in the past, and it has the chickens have come home to roost, and that was not working anymore. So we did work with 3, 4 other communities to sign an ambulance contract. It is working much better,
Yes.
but that is costing us
$5,000?
$35,000 a year in new expenses that we've not had in the past either.
So if you look at page 18, there is an ambulance department that is new, and that contractual obligation is about almost less than $35,500 for this next year. And that's a 3-year contract that we've agreed with DeWitt Township, City of DeWitt, and then one of the general law townships. I don't know if it's Riley or the other one that was going to join us. It was the same people that were part of the fire authority. One of them went to Clinton area and one of them stayed with us.
Karen, can you talk about the questions about equipment, about are we buying too much equipment, brand new equipment, is it state of the art? I've also seen this question online. Why did the fire chief buy a new truck but not a fire truck if we need a fire truck? Can you talk about how those decisions are made?
Yeah, so we approach those decisions with the chief's expertise as well as staff. I have those conversations with my chiefs, appointed my chiefs specifically in this regard. Also with my director of DPW, we buy 1 new lawnmower a year. We have a rotation that we put those in. We trade in an old lawnmower that takes cost away from the new lawnmower, and we do that every year. Our mowers in the summertime, I would offer you, are moving probably 8 to 10 hours a day. We're responsible for the township grounds. We have other parks that we mow. We have 2 cemeteries that we mow. So that equipment gets its use, it gets the miles, and we do take care of those in-house. We have someone that has his mechanic's license and does the proactive preventative maintenance on those. So we do our best to do that. The fire chief estimated that he would need about $250,000 for a new wildland firefighting, for brush fires, for wildfires that pop up in the township. That is a problem in the summer and fall months. He was able to replace the chassis of that fire truck and take the old equipment off and transfer it to the new. So he was able to do that for the cost of about $100,000 versus the $250,000 that he had quoted. So we do look for ways. Unfortunately, police vehicles are in rotation. We now have 4 cruisers that are they get replaced 1 a year. And that's to the tune of about $100,000. We look for opportunities to not replace those if we think we can get through. In the past, the K-9 vehicles have not taken as much of a beating in service because they can't be used by another shift. Most of the vehicles are shared, day shift, night shift, shared vehicle. With the K-9 vehicle, we don't do that, so it only sees service when the K-9 is available. So we've extended use of those vehicles without replacing them, but they see hundreds of thousands of service hours, and by the time we trade them, we're sometimes worried that they're not even going to be suitable for a cab company out of Chicago to buy. So we do try to get revenue when we dispose of items too. So We usually will, you spoke to a four-wheeler? Somebody spoke to a four-wheeler, maybe it was the other couple that was here. Yeah, so we try to understand what fair market value is. We put them out for either, we go to Sheridan auction many times, they take a small cut of the vehicles that we sell through there. We usually try to get fair market value for things, so I can't imagine we would have sold, I'm not saying they're wrong, but I can't imagine we sold a $25,000 four-wheeler for, $1,000. So we try to get the best dollar that we can, and sometimes we had two old Explorers that were used as general. Township staff could use them as company vehicles. I mean, we might have sold those for $300 to $500 and ended up getting a couple thousand through Sheridan auction for them. So we really try to get the best possible amount for them when we trade them in or when we sell them.
One of the things I think Karen has done a really good job in her tenure here is really professionalizing our staff as we have grown as a business entity. We have brought in folks who have expertise in these areas, chiefs, department directors, who have been able to lend their expertise so that we are making really good decisions about these things. And I'm not saying the folks before that weren't professionals, but I think it's just a different expectation of staff now and a different type of staff that you hired. There's a lot less second guessing by the board now than I know there was in the past, where I was like, why shouldn't you do this, and why haven't you thought about this?
Yeah.
We have experts who frankly know more about these things than board members do, and so we've done a good job, I think, trusting them because we brought in some really talented people.
We had a skid steer that we recently purchased. Because of our cemetery and the facilities and grounds that we keep, Trustee Kottke was not here tonight, but he had contacted me and said, why don't you rent one when you need one? That thing is in operation 20 to 30 hours a week. So we look for those opportunities. We are open to board members suggesting things to us, like, do you need to purchase that? Would you be better served to possibly rent that when you need it? But the day-to-day operations of this township have become such that we could rent a lift to go up on the roof of the fire department. Certainly we can rent one of those from Sunbelt, and we rent it once a year or twice a year. We don't need to own one of those, but when it comes to equipment that is in use, being utilized every day or multiple times a week for the cemeteries or for different grounds, we come to a point where it becomes, it makes more sense to purchase than rent.
That's something that I've learned as a board member since coming back on the board. Just the breadth and depth of the day-to-day operations of the township is much different than it has been in the past. Our police cruisers are just on the road basically 24/7. That adds up the miles, that adds up the wear and tear. Where there have been chases and crashes and all sorts of things, all that stuff has to be fixed. The average person just wouldn't know those things and shouldn't know those things, right? They're not plugged in the way that staff and board members are. But I found it really surprising just the amount of activity that is happening now, which costs money and costs staff time.
I would agree with that.
Can you talk a little bit more about the fire department, the assessment that we did, and some of the fixes that we have been making, and why that budget has jumped so dramatically? That's certainly been something people pointed out. They're absolutely correct, and I think we've got a very defendable answer on that.
So if you look at the police and fire budgets that are on pages, there's the fire department. So it starts on page 21 is the revenues, and then when you move to page 22, it's the expenditures for the police department. You'll know, we talked to the chief the other night, he gave an update to the board of trustees. They have 17, I think he said 17 people now in the department. 11 or 12 of those are officers on the road. And we look at industry standards of how many people per officer should we have. We have done things such as, is it safe? We've been trying, our current chief has been trying to have 2 officers on the road over the weekend, so that when we have some of these incidents that happen on the weekend, unfortunately, the officers are not by themselves. We've had an officer involved shooting. I can't remember, I think it was last year, not this year. If it wasn't for overtime, one of those officers would have been by himself when that shooting had happened. So we're trying to make sure that it's safe for our people to be on the road and know that they can count on someone else. Our chief often works the road. He was talking about working the road on Park Lake this weekend. And that, he just had a free afternoon. He doesn't get paid extra for that, but he put on his uniform and he went out and patrolled Park Lake Road because that is an area of concern in this township. People worry about the safety and the speed at which people travel down that road. The houses are close to the road. There's parks, there's a beach. So he himself is going out. So there are times when, overtime is required and it creates a safer environment for our officers, which is first and foremost to us. But you can tell from just the salaries in the police department, $1.36 million is a lot of money, but that is the biggest asset we have in that department is our people. And as we look, we always want to make sure that we can answer the call when people call us. You can see in there, education and training is a large component of what they do. Gasoline and fuel is a large component. And then the expenses of hiring people and then making sure they have the equipment they need when they're out on the road. What we've learned, we will be doing an assessment of the police department. We concluded last year an assessment of the fire department, and that looks at the current equipment we have, the current staffing model. It looks at the building. It looks at everything related to providing that service in our community. One of the things that we learned that the supervisor just spoke to was that we need a mitigation system for the diesel. When those vehicles are operating, they release diesel fumes, carbon monoxide into the building, and it is an open building where people that could be in an office, they could be working out, they would be in basically ingesting those fumes. So we need a system that keeps those fumes separate from those pedestrian areas of the fire department so that we can keep those people safe that are working for us. That's, $120,000 to $30,000. So those are the kinds of things that we're looking at when we have human capital as our biggest asset. We also have to protect that asset, sometimes in ways that we weren't even aware. They were shocked that when we built the department, we didn't have one, or that we hadn't added one over time, but that was something that was identified in that assessment. Definitely. We have also been a paid on-call department for many years. We have been finding that less people are responsive at night. All of you know that if you're going to be in pain, it's going to be at night when you lay down to try to sleep. Calls for service at night are critical. We try to get to people with the ambulance, but a lot of times our police and fire they're the ones responding before anybody else. So part of the staffing model has been to move to some paid, full-time paid positions so that we have at least one person at the station who's waiting hopefully for one more person to respond if it's a call for medical assistance. If it's a fire, it's a very different situation, but we require more people to be able to leave the station in a vehicle. But sometimes people don't realize it takes, our DPW director lives right here on the border of the township. It might take him 20 minutes to wake up, get dressed, come here, get in his gear, and go out on the road. So what we're trying to do is move to a system where somebody's already here working. They don't have to come in, they're here and they're ready to go. So we're trying to build that staffing model so that we can be faster out the door and we're not waiting for people to come from home, a nearby home, to get into a vehicle and go out for service.
I'm sorry, this is
The fire department.
fire.
Yeah.
The chief has also recently shared with us that just the model of modern work is different. It used to be folks might work closer to home, so they'd be closer to Bath Township. Now folks are working all over the region, so they get the call, they're driving from Delhi Township. It's going to take a while to get here. In the number of workplaces who will allow someone to just in the middle of their shift leave their work to go put out a fire, that's just not how modern workplaces work anymore. And so this paid full-time version seems to be where not just our department is going, but where most departments are going.
Yep.
And that was a large part of the public safety millage to be able to cover those changes, because that's, as you can imagine, is a massive
It is. We are also fortunate, we have several people that work here in the township, for the township, that actually are members of the department. We share a position here with the ordinance compliance officer, is also the fire inspector. He's here during the day. If a call goes out, he can respond. So we have found creative ways to staff the department, but also staff other areas of the township. But those aren't always prevalent, or we're not always, with people's abilities or careers, we're not always able to do that. But we have found creative ways to share responsibilities and have people that are able to go out on calls if needed.
Thank you for this, Karen. Is there anything else in the budget you want to point out, major expenses or changes that make asking for a heavily rollback more necessary?
I think I've answered a few emails of people that have questioned individual expenses, and I appreciate the opportunity to explain those to people. Sometimes people, even most recently as hiring the assessor, there was a question of why I used a recruiter. I think that it's important for people to understand that I don't take these things lightly. I was preparing for a medical leave. We were replacing someone that had worked for us for 25 years. I was advised by local managers, municipalities, that it was going to be very difficult to hire an assessor. I used a recruiter. I was able to get 4 qualified candidates and have them vetted for me prior to me even interviewing them. My deputy and I interviewed them and got Tim hired. Great hire Tim on the way here with notice to his previous employer. But I wanted to make sure that I had that done by the time that I left for my leave, and the township was being managed by my deputy. I understand that people might not think that's a good use of township funds, but I did, in my professional opinion, think that was the right thing to do for the township and leave us in a good position with a professional before I went on that leave. So, I understand people question, and they can. I'm happy to answer those questions for people.
Yeah, so and thank you for doing that. I would encourage folks to email, call Karen, email board members. It is our job to be responsive to those things. When you are polite, it goes a long way, and I promise you we're not evil people. No one is getting rich off from this, so when your opening line is, I know you're embezzling money, that is not the best way to get a timely and nice answer. We will answer that email still, but know that accusations don't help. No one is trying to do anything wrong here. We're 7 of your neighbors, and most of our staff work here too, trying to make the best decisions. We're paying the same taxes as well. That doesn't mean you all should vote yes. If you think the right answer is no, you should vote what is best for your family and your household. But no, we are trying to make sure your township government is responsive, it is modern, it is equipped to be able to do the things that we all demand it to do. And that is a large part of why the board decided to ask for this fallback option.
So I would offer, I know I used a lot of air in this room, but I would like to explain the difference, and I know most of the people in this room already understand the difference between a mandated or required service from the state. And those areas include election administration, land use regulation, which is planning and zoning, property assessment, and then property tax collection. Those are areas that, while I could cut, I most likely would not cut because those departments are already mostly bare bones and doing the function that we're required to do. Where I would look is the permissive services that we are allowed to offer and do currently offer, which includes...
This is where you would look to cut.
These are the pots of money where I could look to make those cuts. I'm not saying I will, I'm saying I can, and there would be discussions around them, which would include ambulance, cemetery management, ordinance compliance, parks and recreation, which includes the senior center. Public safety is also, it's a permissible, we're not required to do it, but we offer it. So police and fire, road maintenance and construction, we spend each year between $300,000 and $600,000, $700,000 in road maintenance. I would have to look there. And then our sewer system is something that is a separate fund all on its own, and we collect REU fees to do the system maintenance, and we bill that, but that is also not required by law. So those are really the areas that the positive money where I would look to make those cuts if this millage did not pass.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes.
Questions left? Go ahead.
Yeah, on that specific topic, having watched the board meetings, certainly you haven't made any decisions, and you haven't had to need to make those decisions because the millage hasn't been voted on yet. But I did get a little bit more of a vibe that the board, in two instances, was talking more about actions they could take to levy a tax or a special assessment without the vote of the people. It just felt like the vibe of the room of the board was leaning more towards that than towards cuts. And listen, I understand cuts is hard, and I appreciate what the township has done already in the area of retirement and health. I acknowledge that. But this is more just a comment that maybe you can pass along to the fellow trustees that aren't here, that I do think there is something to respecting the vote of the people and not just taking some legal back channel to undermine that vote. And maybe take time to consider more of an in-between option between massive cuts, which I agree with you is hard and I personally believe good for the township, and just backdooring in tax increases.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, I was encouraged to hear at the very opening of the meeting tonight, you said, maybe if this fails in August, we could consider asking for less in November. Maybe that would get a warmer reception, and then just frustrating people.
Yeah.
I think this happened in Delta Township recently, where the people said no, and then they just said, well, we're just going to slap a special assessment on you anyway.
Yeah.
That was pretty rough.
So what I can offer you from an administration position is I've identified $1.5 million of cuts. What I try to be careful of is not the fear mongering that we get accused of.
Yeah.
I'm prepared to make $1.5 million of cuts if the board agrees with me, and that is to all those areas that I indicated to you that were permissive. And that includes staff positions, and I don't want to panic my staff because I'm already getting questions of like, am I going to be cut?
Yeah.
That's a very scary realization for some people that work here and depend on this for their lives. It does include staff positions, and it includes cuts to almost all those things that I mentioned early on. I am willing to do that. I'm not fear-mongering. I don't know if this board would agree with that, but maybe there is that in between. That we can find, but we don't know until we're faced with that. But I am prepared. As of this meeting, I have identified $1.5 million of cuts that I can make.
Yeah, we'll just hear that recommendation from one singular citizen that I am not anti-tax government. I love this township, what you guys are doing, and the hard work.
Yeah.
So on one end, I'm not, oh man.
I understand.
Brutal cuts.
Yes.
Brutal, terrible.
And it would make this, I think what it would do is it would destroy the community, that feel of, and I'm not pointing to anything, but if Parks and Recreation were on the line, it would take away some of those things that lend this community to being that place you want to live and be.
Yeah. And on the other extreme,
Correct.
you will severely destroy the trust with the public.
Correct.
If you put this to a vote and then immediately turn around and say, oh, we're forcing it on you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are certainly not alone in that voice. We have heard that from other people. What I would offer is the board spent a lot of time educating ourselves on what revenue options are.
Yeah.
And so some of that discussion, some of that sort of vibe in the room, I would offer is us trying to remember what we have learned, what the options are, because it took 6 months of us learning that these special assessments even exist. And that's because we're normal people, your neighbors, well elected, we are not professional at this. So we went through a 6-month process of learning. So a lot of times I think you're hearing that discussion because we're trying to remember what the options are.
Yes.
But you're not alone in that feedback that doing it after a no vote would feel disrespectful.
Yeah, I appreciate that, thank you.
So special assessment for you.
Other questions, other things we missed?
He was just asking about special assessments.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I think Judge was saying, I didn't realize that was even a legal remedy. Okay, now we know.
Yeah, it's another revenue option, specific types of special assessments. There's a road millage that we could put on your taxes without a vote. Obviously, all that money would go toward the roads. That doesn't exactly solve our budget problem, which is why we did not decide to do that, but it is still an option. And there's other pieces of the revenue puzzle that we could put together. But we chose to try to do the Headley rollback. Mostly, again, I'm speaking on behalf of the board, and feel free to disagree with me, Sherry, because this is what should have been done over time. We shouldn't be asking you for 1.4 mils right now. We should have been asking you for 0.1 mils or some small amount that we had done this over time so people could budget and prepare for. Past boards just have not chosen to do that. I think I've been on past boards too, so I own a piece of this. We really liked being able to tell you all we're a low tax community, and that is true, but again, those things have caught up to us. The liability in the pension program, the health care, fire trucks that are now 21 and 22 years old that should be replaced, and we have $0 saved for that. Those things that other communities have changed a decade ago, we should have been doing and just didn't. And now, unfortunately, all of us are having to decide, what does that mean? Does that mean cuts? Does that mean more revenue? Does that mean cuts and more revenue? I think I can speak for the board when I say we would rather be having a different conversation about new projects and new services that we'd be able to offer you at no cost than we are about what we should cut or how we should tax you more. These things are going to need to be taken care of, and we are at the point where they need to be taken care of now. Other questions in the room? These have been incredible questions. I really appreciate you all coming out and asking them, the feedback and the comments.
I have one more comment on that. I think you should look hard at where you can decrease expenses. And you mentioned 6 square miles for Bath Township, 6 square miles for DeWitt. Well, okay. Do you really need separate fire departments? How many true fires do you respond to? There was a fire down Chandler. Was it in May?
Yeah,
Yes.
you're correct. It was in the last
Was
couple of
that,
months.
was that even an occupied residence?
Yes.
Okay.
40 residents in
Oh,
the apartment.
I think he's referring to the house. Someone perished in that house fire.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there was a house fire right by the
Well, that's how many fires we did. We're talking about two in the same area, unfortunately.
Well, it would be interesting to see how many in a year, true fires, and at that one, there must have been 14 fire trucks or something, but I thought, wow. Anyways, to me, that seems an obvious, I don't think just because you have a township, you need to have this, separate that, separate this, separate that. To me, that seems like an easy thing to consolidate.
I would offer that I appreciate your perspective. I wish it was easier. It's not, because it's the voters of DeWitt, it's the voters of Bath, and it's sometimes a reluctance of communities with their own personalities and their own culture, politics that don't want to. I would offer you that was the issue when we tried to do recreation programs together. Bath said we're not DeWitt, and DeWitt said we're not Bath, and they didn't want to do it.
It blew up. It was the ugliest thing I've ever seen. It was about T-ball for little kids.
Yeah, you wouldn't think that would be an argument, but it was. So we do the best we can to find those areas to partner on. The sewer authority works really well. This ambulance.
Yeah,
The more we work together and the easier it gets, I would offer that the easier it becomes. I don't know that we're all ready to join fire departments, but we were ready to join ambulance service. So we are looking for those opportunities.
Well, I encourage you to continue to look. And I would just comment that the passion around T-ball, there's nothing that exceeds that. So I'm sure fire departments would probably be
easier.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's a great perspective.
Can I clarify one thing?
Yeah.
Just in case this affects your perception of it a little bit, I just want to clarify. Townships in Michigan are all 6 miles by 6 miles, so it's 36 square miles,
Yeah.
not just 6.
Yeah,
Sorry.
right.
That's okay.
All right,
Yeah.
so I was
Yeah.
making 6.
Sorry,
Yeah, thank you.
I know what it means in my head.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right, thank you.
Any other questions we can answer? Again, these have been wonderful.
One just final comment from an individual citizen that if this passes, I would also be encouraged to see conversations in the board meetings about getting to a restored position of strength in the actual reserves. There's always that temptation, like I understand you only need 1 mil to cover this $500,000 deficit, and so that 0.4 is extra. And there's always this temptation of just, well, I've got lots of projects that we could spend that all on. I would love to see a board that says, 6 years we were in a healthy position. We're still in a pretty good position, but I would love to see some conversation that says, let's build that back up again so that we don't spend it all and 2 years from now we're going, oh no, we need to do this again. So this, I like my local government. I actually don't mind paying some tax. I like fiscal responsibility.
So from a staff perspective, if I could say something, I think we're trying to arm the board, I am trying to arm the board with facts to use in those discussions, because I like a deliberate conversation about if we're going to use fund balance or if we're going to put it away.
Yeah.
The strategic plan helps immensely with where priorities fall. The comprehensive, all these plans that we have, but we're doing a classic compensation study this year. We're looking at doing the assessment of the police department. We are doing a facilities and grounds study this year too, because we have aging facilities that don't necessarily work for the way people work anymore. So we are looking at those, but my intent is to arm my board with the best possible information to know how to move forward with some of these discussions, because I think that's what we've lacked in the past is how much longer can we make this building work? Well, the roof failed last year. I mean, we had an office that was completely ruined because the water came in and broke the drywall and the ceiling and all the things. So we have to have those discussions. So I'm trying to arm them with information and facts that they can use to have those discussions.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
When I first joined the board in 2012, I was on a term, off a term, and back on a term. I was told by my fellow board members we were fiscally sound, everything was great, and I just, as the new guy, I was like, sounds great, this is wonderful. And I thought that ever since. Last year we had a financial expert come in with our accounting firm, and he told us we were one of the lowest fund balances in the region, that we were underfunded in the fund. It was the first time in a decade I had heard somebody with knowledge say that. It was like a paradigm shift in my own brain. Like, I've assumed we were ahead of the game. Lo and behold, that information was, old wives' tale. It was a myth that had just been passed on board to board to board. And I think a lot of these challenges that we've had have been passed on board to board to board. Let's not do this. Let's not raise let's not do a Headley reset. Let's not change the health care. We're bringing in experts now, just as Karen was just describing, so that we understand what is happening and where we are in the greater world to better prepare for, tougher times and even for good times ahead. So I really appreciate that thought, and I totally agree. We need to make sure that fund balance is not even restored, but back to where it should be.
I would offer that I began here in 2012, and I became superintendent in 2019. My predecessor, Dan Maticha, I have a huge amount of respect for. He was a very sharp individual. MERS, the retirement issue kind of reared its head back in like 2014, 2016. MERS was making changes. The township recognized it needed to make changes. From 2014 until this year, in 2025 to 2026, is finally when the changes were made. It took 10 years. I would offer you that for the first time in and I'm not slamming any board member or any board in the past, because I've had some great board members, we have a board that's willing to address the issues. Tackle them. They're hard. They're difficult. Staff sometimes doesn't like them. and it has caused people to leave us because they don't like the changes we've made. That's okay. I've got a board that is a partner in making these changes and taking us where we need to be.
Great.
And I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions?
So, to your point, so Karen has to do with board member. Karen has an upcoming board member orientation time set aside for me, and I have a list of questions to ask. And when Ryan was talking about this memo, the first thing I wrote down, and I have it here, and we'll talk about it there, is like, what is a good percentage of an overall budget that should be in the fund balance, or are there SOPs or things that we should kind of benchmarks around there for that, so that we can plan to how to get there?
Great question.
So, and I don't know the answers to it. What is the
average regional fund balance is 110%.
Okay.
We are not.
You're not.
Or no. That's what I learned last year.
Yeah. Great.
Any other audience questions before we wrap up today? Again, the big
Just one more. I found out about this town hall when I called, and I think I spoke with Karen. But had I not called about something else, or was this, how do people know about this?
Promoted on Facebook. We have been mentioning it as
Facebook.
It's on the sign out front.
It's on the sign out front. Yeah, it's
Yeah, but I
been,
mean, how many people come by? I mean, that's my same question too, because I wouldn't have known about it except I called
I don't
yesterday.
do Facebook. Why would we have to do
Yeah,
Facebook?
yeah.
So listen, I would love your feedback on this. We
Yeah.
cannot find the right way to communicate with
Got our
people.
addresses?
Listen, this is what I hear from people, and this is a little facetious, but it's not really facetious. What I hear from people is, don't call me, don't email me, don't knock on my door,
Yeah, right.
don't mail me things, and I want to know everything that's happening.
Yeah, right.
And how, and so this is a real call out to everyone. If you have an idea about how we can better communicate, we will do it.
Do you have all of this on your website?
Yes,
All this
yes.
information?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes, but again, what would drive you to the website unless
Yeah.
you were like, randomly I'm going to the website?
That is a problem.
It is a really tough thing.
Yeah.
And part of what we want, part of what's in our budget this year is to do a communication strategy to figure out how to do this. Because I
That'd be
agree,
great. Yeah.
we do not have a good strategy to reach out to.
Because that's my one critique since I moved in here 7 years ago, is that I've never been in a place where it was so hard to find information.
Yeah.
You know, and to find out what's happening, what's going on, and even when I come in, sometimes they either don't want to come in, and I understand that, because sometimes it's, you know,
Yeah.
but also it's like, where do I go then?
We also, just for my own, because I see it happen all the time, people come in, we put newsletters out, we put newsletters in your sewer bill, we put newsletters in your tax bills. Sometimes I see people come in and pull it out, and then when they're done, they'll say, can you recycle this for us? They've never opened it, they've never read it. And that's not a
Yeah.
there's a lot of information coming at us all the time.
I think that this is an overall problem with our society in general. Yeah, people don't have the time, don't have the energy, don't have the knowledge. I didn't even know what to expect to hear tonight myself. So, you don't know what questions to ask even.
Yeah, that's an open invitation to residents to let us know the best way to reach you. And obviously, it's going to be multiple ways, and we're willing to do that, but it's helpful to hear.
I'll guarantee you, if you just have your employee, Bath Township employees show up and vote, it's going to pass, because this is, the apathy is palpable.
Yes.
I mean,
That's
Our turnout for voting has been pretty high lately.
Has it?
One more thing.
So there are 9,500 registered voters in this township, just so you know.
You mentioned Park Lake, not moving around there, we all go 25, we're supposed to 25.
We're supposed to.
I hold up traffic when I go.
Good for you, thank you.
Good for you. Why don't you, maybe they could hang out a little bit on Chandler, past Eagle Eye, where I had a new build, we just built in Landings 2. People like to open up there and roar down about 70 miles an hour, especially these trucks loaded with, double 10 things. They roar down that stretch. And I rarely see a Bath Township police officer there, but
I just learned that the police have a special attention board, that if someone reports to them that there is a lot of activity, when they are not on calls and don't have things that they need to do, they will look at the special attention board and go to those places. Park Lake is one of them. I just saw Slate was named as one of them, but you got to let them know.
so on special attention, just go to the,
You can actually, you can email them through the website, or you can just call the police department and talk to one of the administrative assistants at
They can put it up on their board.
They will.
Thank you again. again for coming out. Thanks for folks online for watching. Again, if you've got questions, please, to your point, don't go to Facebook. Come to us. Let us tell you the truth.
Right.
Come to board members. Come to staff. That doesn't mean you have to vote the way we want you to vote, but at least get the actual information.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. Have a great night, folks.
Thank you.
And Adam, thanks for your response. I had emailed you before. You were.
Oh, yeah, I'm glad that you came out then.